By the time Reach came under attack in 2552, the Human Covenant War had already been raging for 27 years, consuming an entire generation, where the numerous planet-scaling battles on distant colonies and massive fleet actions in far-off solar systems became a fact of life, to where it was inevitable that you were to be inducted into the UNSC war machine at some point, grinding humanity down with this decades-long war that was beginning to turn south. So the UNSC pulled back and consolidated its forces within its innermost colonies in the Sol system after a string of defeats that left them on the back foot, all but abandoning the remaining outer colonies. Yet no one in the right mind thought it would ever get as far into human space as Reach. A planet just down the metaphorical street from Earth are roughly 10.5 light years away within the Epsilon Eridani system. It would take 52,850 light years to cross the Milky Way galaxy to give perspective. The planet had a population of 703,341,000 pre-invasion and was a bustling hive of commerce, ranging from finance, technology, and retail to heavy industry such as mining and shipbuilding, made this planet the workhorse of the human war economy. These industries were supplemented by multiple ONI research facilities and a mini military base that dotted the planet's surface, making this a nexus of activity that was by far the most important human colony. Yet despite the United Nations Space Command's best efforts, the planet would be discovered and come under attack from an overwhelming Covenant force and fall just over a month into a series of pitched battles that can be broken down into 3 distinct phases. The Covenant would begin their invasion of Reach on July 23rd, 2552 Earth time, when the fleet of Valiant Prudence secretly arrived in orbit over the planet and would begin to deploy ground forces onto the surface at Citations Ridge. There they sat for 2 days, hidden from the UNSC thanks to advanced cloaking pylons spread over the region as they gathered their forces and began to excavate foreign artifacts before finally making their first offensive move that revealed their presence. A Covenant assault on the relay array at Visegrad would sever communications between Reach and other colonies. Thinking it was insurrectionists, a major ONI oversight, Colonel Urban Holland would send army fire teams to investigate the array, but would soon lose contact with them. So the Spartan Team Noble, comprising Carter, Catherine, June, Emil, George, and Six in ascending numerical call sign order, would be sent in their way to investigate and would make first contact, confirming the presence of Covenant forces on the planet and kickstarting the Battle of Reach on July 25th. Winter contingency would be declared the same day, which is the highest priority plan possible to be enacted, declared only when a new colony falls under attack and supersedes any standing orders. This mobilized all available UNSC personnel on and off planet, with up to 60% of the entire human naval fleet being recalled to defend the Epsilon Eridani system, the main force of which was scheduled to arrive in system by August 15th. From now on, I'll refer to this as the combined fleet. Open combat would rage across parts of Reach over the next few days, prompting drastic measures to be taken by UNSC personnel. All data that contained information about colonies or Earth that could potentially fall into Covenant hands was purged in accordance with the Cole Protocol, and ONI operatives were dispatched under supplementary orders to safeguard sensitive assets, i.e. protect astronavigationeers, or if needed, eliminate them to ensure their extensive knowledge of human colonies in Earth did not fall into the Covenant's hands. Yet as this is happening, Sword Base, an important research and test facility, will come under attack from a Covenant corvette and ground forces, requiring Normal Team to engage to bring the base's AA defenses back online, which they did successfully, but after a fierce battle, driving the corvette off, which was then destroyed shortly afterwards by an orbital MAC round once clear of the facility. But while there, they encountered Dr. Catherine Halsey, hidden deep within her laboratory, who requested to see them personally, but it was only so she could retrieve a data module Cat had stolen from one of her deceased researchers at Visegrad and try to access, unsuccessfully, I might add. 2 weeks after the battle for Sword Base, Noble 6 and Jun would infiltrate the Covenant base at Zuzadok Ridge, scouting the area out in preparation for a major assault the next day and planting demolition charges on one of the aforementioned cloaking pylons. This attack would hope to be swift and decisive, the army spearheading it alongside Noble Team, with heavy support lent from the Navy and Marines to try and dislodge the aliens' fragile hold on their territory, which was quite successful at first. Noble Team driving deep through the enemy lines and destroying multiple AA cannons, protecting the airspace, enabling longsword interceptors and frigates to move in and provide close fire support to the ground units and attack a mysterious Covenant spire located atop the ridge, which went great. Six is able to spire's shielding, allowing a frigate to move in close and fire a MAC round point blank through it, practically gutting the spire from the inside out.
MAC round in atmosphere.
One way to get their attention. Hang on to your teeth, people.
But these impressive gains were quickly undone, however, when the Covenant supercarrier Long-Ida Solus revealed itself high in geosynchronous orbit over the battlefield with a shot from its plasma beam, destroying the frigate that attacked the Spire and turning tides of battle in the blink of an eye. All the while, Sword Base would fall under a second, much more successful attack, overrunning the base in just hours with no hopes of recovery. As the fighting across route became more desperate, other sensitive sites within the Epsilon system would be evacuated, such as Teller Station, the staff of which, in the process of quickly wrapping up their excavation at Site 17, accidentally activated foreign systems presence there, alerting the Covenant Admiral Rowe to the artifact they were recovering, so he would deploy a significant portion of his forces to secure Site 17, primarily his battlecruiser squadron. Admiral Michael Strandforth would counter this move by sending part of his task force, mostly frigates and heavy cruisers, to the area to engage their foe in a massive battle that would result in a UNSC tactical defeat, but a strategic victory in that the Forerunner artifact they were excavating was secured and removed for later use in a special mission. Operation Uppercut. The plan to behead the Covenant fleet's command in one swift move and cripple their ability to conduct further organized defenses would be led by Noble 5, George, and 6. The plan called for the capture of the Covenant corvette Ardent Prayer using an experimental saber fighter launched from Castle Base in conjunction with a squadron of Army Saber pilots and the frigate UNSC Savannah, whose slipspace drive was removed and modified into a slipspace bomb. The UNSC Combined Fleet, which arrived on August 15th, would launch a massive diversionary attack against the fleet of Valiant Prudence known as Operation Left Jab, allowing the Spartan team to slip through the Covenant's defenses unnoticed aboard the Ardent Prayer and deliver the bomb onto the Long-Ida Solus, which they successfully did, killing the Supreme Commander Bartamy in the crash at the cost of Savannah and George, who sacrificed himself to detonate the bomb manually after it was damaged in the firefight. But even before the debris finished raining down onto the surface of Reach around New Alexandria, another massive Covenant fleet exited subspace with an Epsilon system, initiating Phase 2 of the battle. The fleet, a whole respite, appeared in system under the direct orders of the Ministry of Resolution to reinforce the failing fleet of Valiant Prudence. By this time, the remaining UNSC space assets were battered and exhausted after Left Jab, forcing them to withdraw temporarily and regroup. This allowed Covenant ground forces to land on the planet and lay siege to the city of New Alexandria on August 18th. 6 would return to the planet in an impromptu orbital drop after George threw him out of the airlock of the Ardent Prayer, similar to how Master Chief crashed into the Earth at the beginning of Halo 3. He would land in the outskirts of the city, but would quickly pick himself back up and begin to fight his way through the carnage, lending a hand to his beleaguered defenders and evacuating civilians, slowly working his way towards the rest of Noble team, who were busy clearing more evacuation points alongside the Army and Marines. Many of the evacuation craft would be shot down though. There, he would take command of a Wasp gunship and disable a trio of jammers that were disrupting communications, allowing reinforcements and precise strikes to be taken that allowed the UNSC to break the siege on the 23rd, destroying the last Covenant holdouts at the cost of many casualties, only for the city of New Alexandria to be glassed. Noble 2, Cat, will be lost while retreating into a bunker during one of these glassings, shot through the back of the head by a zealot sniper wielding a needler rifle.
Calling a demolition a priority 1.
Come on, get in!
Let's go, come on!
The 4 remaining members of Noble teams would emerge a few days later and immediately be redeployed with a unit of ODSTs for Operation White Glove to scuttle Sword Base. But while making their way through the facilities, their objectives were updated mysteriously and were rerouted down to a secret complex hidden underneath the base, where they encountered Dr. Catherine Halsey again within a Forerunner structure. Halsey made the Spartan team defend her laboratory as she finished her data retrieval, and once done, ordered 6 to take a fragment of the Cortana AI to the cruiser Pillar of Autumn, while June escorted her to Castle Base for evacuation. Concurrently with these events, another Covenant fleet exited subspace on the outskirts of the system, creating the largest formation recorded to date in the Human Covenant War, amongst which was Supreme Commander Tel Vadim, the Arbiter, and his fleet of Particular Justice taking the lead. The roughly 750 ships bore down on the combined fleet, which numbered less than a fifth of the forces Tel commanded, signaling Phase 3 of the campaign. All UNSC warships were gathered at Rally Point Zulu near Reach to face down the newly reinforced and engorged enemy fleet, initiating a heavily one-sided battle in orbit, with the first Covenant salvo of plasma torpedoes being taken by a trio of sacrificial refit stations, allowing the orbital defense platform to fire their first volley unimpeded, while 4 nuclear mines detonated amongst the fleet, destroying about 100 Covenant ships. But even this triple-digit kill count had very little effect on Thel's drive, because he would close the distance and maneuver around the debris cloud to launch a second salvo that obliterated large parts of the UNSC fleet and destroyed a quarter of the 20 Supermac platforms orbiting Reach. Reach, crippling the already stretched defenses as thousands of dropships were deployed to reinforce the Covenant's ground forces before they retreated, many of which were intercepted, but enough dropships did get through to further imperil the faltering defenses of Reach and led to a renewed wave of defensives across the surface. By this point, only 20 human ships remained operational, one of which was the Pillar of Autumn, which had engaged a never-before-seen Covenant ship, the Supercruiser, in a one-on-one duel, firing well over 500 archer missiles and multiple MAC rounds that had very little to no effect on the ship while taking severe damage herself from the energy projector. So Captain Keyes used the most destructive weapon at his disposal and launched a Shiva nuclear missile that evaporated the cruiser in a blinding flash of light brighter than any star. While this space battle was happening, Gamma Station would be boarded with vital data still on board, violating the code protocol, so Master Chief and his team of Spartan 2s would assault the station and destroy the troublesome prowler housing the data. Meanwhile, the rest of Spartan 2 Red Team were deployed to reinforce the garrison at the orbital defense generators A331. Their Pelican would be shot down en route, however, claiming 4 Spartans, but the survivors were pushed on and separated into 4 smaller fire teams, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta, to go on either defending the generators or lobbing a nuke into a Covenant cruiser's gravity well, in Alpha's case, to obliterate it in the 10,000-man division camped underneath the ship. All of that was happening while the 3 remaining members of Noble Team fought their way to the Pillar of Autumn at Azeroth Breaking Yards, the last off-world extraction point still held by the UNSC at this point. Their meeting with Captain Keyes would be cut short by a Covenant attack, however. Keyes and his crews would escape aboard the Pillar of Autumn, taking a random slow space jump into the solar system with Tel Vadim trailing not far behind. But Noble would not make it off-planet. Carter had sacrificed himself to destroy a Scarab, and Emil was killed by Zealot while operating a mass driver cannon protecting the landing pad. So Six would take his place, engaging multiple dropships, Banshees, and a cruiser bearing down on the shipyard, preparing to glass it. He would shoot the cruiser through the plasma projector, crippling the warship in its final approaches and saving the shipyard. The last images we saw of Six were of him fighting in a valiant one-man standing against an army of Covenant soldiers. He killed hundreds, facing down the overwhelming force with valor and showing why he held the status of hyper-lethal on par with Master Chief. But when engaged by multiple Zealot and Ultra class Singheili in a hand-to-hand combat, he would fall, exhausted and outnumbered against his Covenant foe. Surrounded by the bodies of his enemies, Six would be among the 700 million casualties the UNSC suffered on Reach. 130 naval vessels were also lost in action, as well as an unknown number of Spartans, with at least 52 of both the 2 and 3 classes known to have died during the battle, as well as all 20 Supermac platforms protecting the planet. But even though this was a near crippling loss because of Reach's industrial prowess, being second only to the Sol system itself, a disproportionate level of losses were sustained by the Covenant and their assault. Over 210 alien ships were lost in the battle, with super heavy units like the Long Night of Solus and Supercruiser extracting an especially heavy toll on the Covenant's forces, as well as the loss of multiple battle cruisers and the majority of the fleet of Valiant periods, severely damaging their ability to project force. Yet the losses were still crippling to UNSC as well. The majority of their fleet had perished. Forces were disheartened, and the loss of so many Spartans crippled future plans to use these super soldiers to take down this Covenant as a whole. Humanity seemed to be on their last leg in a war of annihilation. Just a quick shout out to my friend Thorn for reviewing my script for me. I greatly appreciate you doing this for me, bud. Also, I'd like to announce I'll be alternating between producing Fallout and Halo videos from now on, and hopefully 1 episode of each per month for the foreseeable future. If you guys like this video, hit like, subscribe, and then share it, and I will see you in the next one.